on trends in Web3, startups, and venture capital. ESL has kept the feeling of entrepreneurship alive and kicking since its founding. We strongly believe entrepreneurship is not just a career, but a journey and mindset to feel proud of. Our past events have kept you guys engaged and in touch with this very feeling. Carrying forward the legacy, we have gathered for another informative and wonderful session with Mr. Aaron Agrawal, our speaker today. He attained his education from the University of Guelph, Canada, and then went on to work with the World Bank, OECD, and is currently an investment analyst at a global venture capital firm. Sir, I welcome you to please share more about yourself.
Thank you, Adarsh, for a warm welcome, and thank you everyone for joining. To give a brief overview about myself, I have done my education until 12th standard in India, and then I had the opportunity to pursue a dual degree from India and Canada, where I studied at the University of Guelph as well as in Shivnadar, India. Later, I went on to work with various institutions, which included Tata Trust and the Government of India, and also a professor from Stanford. From there on, I pursued my journey in the field of policy before I started discovering more of my interest in startups, venture capital, and blockchain technology. So that got me here. Currently, I'm working with VU Venture Partners, which invest in plethora of startups, and I specifically see Web3 and crypto startups over there, and how I can help them to scale up and grow in the coming future.
Thank you, sir. How was your experience with the World Bank, OECD, and the United Nations?
So that's a very interesting question. I worked with all three of them during my master's. I got an opportunity to study at Sciences Po, which is one of the best universities for policy and politics. During this time, I had an opportunity to work with all three of them. I started with UNSCAP. It might be interesting to some of you who are looking to work with international organizations such as the United Nations. It just started with a cold email where I emailed someone asking, telling them that, okay, I read your paper. It was very interesting. Is there a possibility to work with you? It ended up them giving me a internship offer. And with them, I worked for over 4 months in the Bangkok office and learned during, and it was during the time of COVID. So we worked on things that are happening, how can countries work on different policies and debt analysis, and what can countries do to help bring their economy back to life. Similarly, when I worked with the World Bank and the OECD, it was somewhat similar. We had projects which were given to us, and as an organization, both of them are really big, and it was a great learning experience. Just to give you an example about what you learn and kind of people you meet in this organization. During my first week at OECD, there was an inter-ministerial group meeting. So you would find finance minister of multiple countries right next to your office or eating in cafeterias with you. And similarly, my division head, which I had the opportunity to meet on one-on-one session, uh, has worked with multiple US presidents directly. So this is the kind of exposure you get, and definitely recommend all of you to explore that route.
Wonderful experience, sir. Please introduce the topic, sir, about startups, blockchain, and venture capital.
For sure. So, as you would all know, many of you must have seen Shark Tank as well. So, there are two different things that you do. One is startup. So, anyone wanting to do business or wanting having an innovative idea, they usually enter startups. And then you have the other side of it, which is venture capital. Let me break it down to you one by one. Let's say you want to start a company to sell books. Now, not everyone has the money to start it at once. So you might not have money to purchase all the books. You might not have money to manage the logistic, open a store, hire workers, pay them salary. So what you do is you go to a venture capital. You tell them that, okay, I have this great idea. I have tried some of it and it can work. Would you give me some money, take some of my business for the future profit, and let's work together hand in hand? What differentiates a startup from a regular company is, I think, the scalability aspect of it. So when you see tech startups and companies which call themselves startups rather than a business, are one who can grow exponentially. So for every 1 rupee that you invest, you can get, let's say, 2 rupees or 3 rupees as a benefit. And as you improve, your capital efficiency also improves. To break it into simple language, first 100 rupees might only give you a revenue of 50 rupees. The next 100 would give you a revenue of 100 rupees. And then the final 100 would give you a revenue of 300 rupees. So there is an exponential curve, e to the power x curve is what we call it, and that what makes startups very unique. To give you an example, look at Amazon, Facebook, Apple. They had very limited capital, so they've raised money from the outside. Once they raised it, their business model was proven. They grew exponentially. So that is what VCs do. They help these companies to bring big ideas into real life and transform how individuals live throughout their life.
Thank you, sir. Sir, moving to talk about blockchain and Web3. What exactly is it? Why is it gaining so much popularity suddenly?
So I would divide this topic into two different parts. First is Web3, and then the second one is blockchain. So when you look at evolution of internet, it was started by the US military, which was used to send encrypted messages. And then there are multiple revolutions that happened. The first one was where you could just read. So think of it like information directory. You can go there, you can read multiple things, someone centralizing uploads it. The second one is where you can also interact with these systems. So the first one, an example can be Wikipedia, where you just go read and then take all the information. The second one, you can think of it as a social media. Think of it like Facebook or Twitter, where you go, you read about stuff, and then you are also able to share your views, you are able to interact. So it's a two-way communication. However, the problem here again is that everything is controlled by a centralized system. So think Facebook doesn't like you, or you say something which you think is right but does not go or align with the values or the policy of a particular group. So they can take down your content, they can change it. Now what blockchain and Web3 does, it gives you the ownership of your own data. It gives you readability, writability, interaction, plus immutability. So no one can go in the past and change what you have done without everyone else knowing it. Now talking about blockchain, blockchain is a subset of Web3, is how I take it, which is a technology. It was there in use a lot before. In the 1980s is when it started. However, the real use case came forward in 2009, 2010 after the financial crisis, where someone named Satoshi Nakamoto started a chain called Bitcoin, which was used to transact, and slowly it gained a lot of momentum. And that is how blockchain came into existence, into real life. Its applications are much wider if you think about it. Just to give you an example, since all of you are from India, in India we have around 60 to 70% of court cases on property disputes. So someone giving forged document, something going wrong in the family, and so on. Now think of it, if you are using a blockchain technology, everything is digitalized. So when you are selling or buying a property, you can see who else owned it since the very beginning of it. So that gives blockchain something of a unique power. And I believe it would be very useful in the future. We can discuss more about it as we progress.
Okay. So, how is it useful for future startups, sir?
So future startups can use it in multiple ways. Now think of it, don't think of it like a startup doing something. Think of it the problems around you. What do you think are the different problems around you and how you can use this technology as a solution? Just to give you an example, a few years back and even now, you would see that there are multiple banks who take money from you as deposit. You deposit money as a fixed deposit or savings account, and they give out loans to people who might not repay it, which is sometimes fine in the business, but doing it willingly so that other people lose money is not okay. What you do with blockchain technology is you can create a bank which is not controlled by anyone. The money is completely decentralized, and you can decide who you want to give your money to, what interest do you want to charge. There is no need for centralized exchange. Similarly, a lot of you must be playing gaming or doing gaming. In gaming, there are multiple assets that you have, let's say a gun or a car. In real life or in centralized gaming, the company can sell it to thousands of people. But what you can do is you can make unique game sets or unique guns or unique assets within the game, and this can only belong to you. You can trade it further, so that also increases plethora of opportunities for you. Public service is another one. So think of it like your health records or your tax records. A lot of time tax records are fraud, or they are told wrong, and then later the person comes, oh, this was a human error or it was a mistake. But with blockchain technology, you can easily trace all the transaction and help reduce all those loopholes. So I see a lot of opportunity there. Instead of this is a common saying, instead of having a solution and trying to fit blockchain in it, find a problem which can be solved using blockchain to have longer term viability.
Sir, you said you spot many opportunities in the space. Can you please go on more about the opportunities in Web3?
So yes, I do think Web3 has a lot of opportunities. There are multiple things that you can do. I would divide it into 3 to 4 different opportunities that I see. One is real world assets. So think of it, you buying a property. Can you get it on a blockchain? Or when you are transacting, can you get your money on a blockchain so that it is not controlled by ICICI Bank or HDFC Bank or some other bank? That is a real world use case. To give you an example, RBI currently is working on CBDC, which is centralized digital currency, which would not be controlled by anyone. So that's a good use case. Think of it buying houses. A lot of time, the problem while buying houses is documents are fraud. So if you can get all of that on blockchain and it is verified once, you don't need to verify it all the time. NFT is another great example. If any of you follow the art market, there are a lot of time where people will tell you that this painting is very precious, it's only one in the world, and it's a forged painting, or it's a forged watch, or what we call first duplicate in India. But what you can do with these NFTs is that you give a document proving that this is original, and this document can be moved around. It cannot be forged because it has a unique identity. So real world asset is one example. Then gaming is another example, where you can create games on blockchain. People can interact on blockchain. There are multiple things. You can exchange assets on blockchain. So if you're a good gamer, you don't just need to play in your dorm room or in your room. You can do multiple things. You can trade. You can be very good at game and tell someone who is not good to buy certain assets from you. Then the other thing that I see is DeFi, which is decentralized finance. So think of you lending money to people. Currently, in the ongoing system, there is a high probability that you might lose or the other person might cheat. But when you're doing it on blockchain, you have something called smart contracts, where if value of an asset goes down or the collateral goes down, it will automatically repay you the money. There are multiple ways that you can recoup your money, so the risk is eliminated up to a high degree. And these are some of the use cases that I see. Beyond this, people are working on social media on blockchains. As I mentioned, that you don't want Twitter or Facebook, or let's say some of you might be Instagram influencer. You don't want Instagram to one day come and tell you, okay, you cannot run your account and you lose 100,000 followers, which you built over 5 years. So 5 years of hard work gone into vain. So these are some of the trends that I see. And if someone has interest, I can definitely discuss deep into it.
Sure, sir. Sir, being closely related with cryptocurrencies and NFTs, how do you see it as? Like an investment or a tool for the future?
It's again a very interesting question, and a lot of people might have a lot of different views. I believe in blockchain as an ecosystem, but I find it hard to believe that cryptocurrencies can be used for daily transactions. And this is just my personal view. Some might disagree. This said, what happens is, think of it blockchain like a country. So you started a blockchain. Now you are telling people that you can do multiple things on it, and then there needs to be transactions that need to verify. So what you are telling them, that if you are working in my country, you only can pay in my currency. That is the use of a cryptocurrency. Now, some people use it for speculation, saying that, oh, this coin will go up, this coin will go down. For me, think of it cryptocurrencies as what are the use cases behind it. For example, Ethereum has a lot of use case where you can build apps on top of Ethereum, a layer one blockchain, and then use it to pay its own currency. So you know in future people will use more Ethereum, they will need more Ethereum coins, so you buy it now. So that is how I see it. Although it's not an investment advice, just to put a disclaimer. The second thing that I see over here in this similar space is, uh, apart from this, government of India is not very flexible or open for cryptocurrencies investment. And they are right in their reason, because people use this as money laundering tools as well. They move money out of the country. So one needs to be very careful about that as well. And given the climate, I personally am not investing in cryptocurrencies directly. However, I'm bullish on the space as a whole and what it can achieve in the coming future.
Thank you, sir. Sir, what do you recommend for a beginner in this space?
Mhm. So I started as a beginner around a year ago, so I can tell from my personal experiences. This field is very new, so it does not have a science which is a systematic study of everything. There are a couple of things I would recommend. One is use newsletters. So a lot of people are writing about Web3, how Web3 started, what are the different trends going on there. The second suggestion I would have is read some books. So I have personally been very interested in reading books. Try to read as many books as you can on this topic. Some might be repetitive, some might be new. So you will gain little from everything and compound your knowledge exponentially. And finally, I personally started an initiative where I'm helping people to understand Web3. So I started a LinkedIn initiative, and also soon there will be a booklet about it on 30 simple terms that you can learn about Web3 and ace any conversation or talk to your friends or someone who might be with an intermediate knowledge about the system. I shared a WhatsApp group link as well with others. So if any one of you wants to join it, learn more about Web3, you're very welcome to join the group, and we can have a conversation from there.
The link is in the chat box, guys. Please join the group. And thank you, sir. Sir, how was your experience working in this particular blockchain space and gaining education about it?
So I feel entering any space is very difficult. Uh, Someone once told me as a professional advice that when you are entering a field, you need to be very specific. You need to be an expert. But once you grow up, you can, or you climb higher up the ladder, you can be special, not really specialized, but be a generalist. To give you an example, when a lot of people start in banking or any corporate career, they start as a sales executive or an investment banker or a financial analyst or an engineer. But when they grow, they also see engineering, they also see accounts, they also see HR, they also become CEO. So then you become wide. So in starting, I would say pick up a focus which you want to learn. At least that is what I did in my journey. For me, it was important to understand what is the financial aspects of cryptocurrencies. What are the various use cases? I became interested in something called CBDC, which is central bank digital currencies, and stablecoin. What are the use case? How you can move money around the world? How can you benefit people? It was a part of my project at the World Bank as well as my master's thesis in the college. So that got me interested. From there, I expanded my knowledge into various fields, and I would say today as well, I'm learning something new every day. It was just yesterday I started a book called Proof of Stake, which is based on Ethereum and how Ethereum merge happened. So highly recommend you guys to start learning. Initially it will be very difficult, but you can quickly grow into it.
Okay. So moving to talk about venture capital and startups, how do you differentiate between the Indian ecosystem of startups and abroad ecosystem?
Uh, Again, interesting, but a very wide question. I would divide the global ecosystem into multiple different categories. So, US ecosystem would be different than the European ecosystem, and these two will be different from the Asian ecosystem. Uh, Every country has its own problem, but it also has their own unique solution. For example, I will take Africa. Africa historically did not have banks. So what they did was they started doing payments by SMS. Think of it, you are telling your friend on SMS, pay rupees 100 and the money instantly goes. So that is a startup and how the ecosystem is evolving. So as many of you would know, a majority of the startup ecosystem is based out of California, US, which was the hub of gold rush, then is currently known as the Silicon Valley of the world. Then apart from this, Europe, I feel, is still catching up on a lot of the game. Asia, China, Singapore are some of the fields which I think would gain immensely in the coming future, especially because of the population here. So you see the center of mass, as most of you are engineer, is shifting. First, the center of mass was more towards Europe and US. Now you see population is rising in Asian countries. Second, the wealth that we are bringing is also rising. Uh, People are becoming more educated and they are understanding the value of education. So startup ecosystem has a lot of boom, I believe, in Asia than other countries. And India, it's the perfect place at this perfect time to start something of your own. Uh, 20 years ago, people would copy ideas from the West. So if you look at Flipkart, if you look at Ola, these started when something started in the West. But now West is learning from us. UPI is a very big example where people are learning how you can use UPI in daily transaction. I am in Europe and I know how difficult it can be to do transactions. They're not instant. For small transaction, you need to use card. Other example to give you is WeChat, which is used in China. Super app, everyone uses it. It's used to book restaurant. It's used to book cab. It is used for payments. It is used for anything that you can imagine, for chatting, for social media. And now what Twitter is doing, it's trying to copy WeChat. TikTok is another example where TikTok emerged out of Asia, and now everyone in the US and other countries are trying to copy it. So the center of mass has shifted to Asia. India, China, Singapore, Vietnam, I see as the emerging economies which would lead the startup path, and it's a good place to start with.
Okay, sir. Totally with you on that. And sir, what's your role in venture capital funding? As in, when someone is starting something, the major problem that someone faces is how to gather funds and accumulate money for that. So, what is the perception of a venture capitalist or an investor when they invest in a startup?
Good idea. Good question. So I would go again in detail a little about it. Think of it a fund. They have money. Now everyone has an idea. I think Ashneer Grover in one of his talks said that idea तो किलो के भाव बिक रहे हैं तो execute करने वाला चाहिए. So when you are a venture capital fund or an investment analyst, you see who can execute those ideas. So first is, do you have a good idea? Everyone has a good idea, but do you know about the field? If you want to start a banking service, do you know about banking? If you want to start a cab, do you know how you can run a cab business? Or if you want to start a hotel, do you know how you can run a hotel? Then the second thing is, do you have a team? So this is not a grocery store where it can be run by 2 3 people and it's simple operation. You need tech team, you need support staff, you need research team, you need people to engage with policy officials to get things done at the right time. You also need a sales team. So are you the people who can gather it? Think of it, you are, as I mentioned earlier, you are exponentially growing. So first month you have just 10 customer, next month you have 1,000 customer, then you have 100,000 customer or 1 lakh customers. Can you grow your team? Do you know how to hire people? Or you will hire 5 6 people from your college only, and will they be able to perform? So team is another thing that we look at. So first is the idea, the second is the team, the third is the traction. So usually we come at, let's say, series A, C to series A, and there needs to be some traction. So if you are saying ki people want to use our cab, so I would like to see, have people started using your cab or have they started ordering from you? Then the fourth thing that I see is timing. Does Is the timing right? To give you an example, let's imagine Netflix, which is an online streaming. If it was started in 1990, would any of you be able to use it? Probably not, because internet is not fast. Think of it, Geo coming into the market. If Instagram Reels came, let's say 10 years ago, and you were still paying 50 rupees for every GB, half of you would leave Instagram and you would say WhatsApp कर लेते हैं या message पे बात कर लेते हैं. So timing is also very important. Do you have enough base to build on that? As Sir Isaac Newton said, that he stands on the shoulders of giants who have previously worked, who have previously paved path for him, so that he can build something new. And then the final thing that we look at is also, uh, is the team able to execute the idea? Again, coming back to the team part, that the team can have a good idea, but do they have previous experience doing something same? Imagine Adarsh, you coming to me and telling me, Aryan, I want to open an e-cell throughout the country, a single big e-cell. I might be able to trust you because you have started an e-cell here or you're working with the e-cell here. But think of someone coming in from your college and saying कि मैंने 4 साल कुछ नहीं किया, पर अब मैं एक e-cell खोल लूंगा और मैं वो पूरी दुनिया में फैला दूंगा, पूरे इंडिया में फैला दूंगा. So that is, so you see signals. Or think of it, someone who is continuously failing till 10th standard, 11th standard, doesn't want to study, but then he says he'll crack IIT with top 100 rank. So that credibility is also another thing that we look at.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, Mayank Jan has a question. Do VCs
Mhm.
focus on mainly revenue generation or profit is the main motive while investing in a startup?
So profit is definitely a focus somewhere down the line. As I mentioned, the initial, what differentiates a traditional business from a startup is you can grow exponentially. So initially you look at revenues. Think of it, you are doing a business in your shop and every month you are selling 1 lakh worth of goods. Your profit margin is 100%, let's say. So you are making 100 rupees for every 100 rupees you invest. Now imagine you are doing, instead of 1 lakh, so you have 1 lakh profit. Now imagine you are doing 1 crore and your profit margin is just 10%. I have reduced your profit margin significantly, but still your revenue would be 1 crore or your profit will be 1 crore. So as a VC, you see where you can get the maximum amount of profit. I would definitely say this is a misunderstanding that VCs only invest in companies and these companies never generate profit, which is false. A lot of companies have given great revenues. And for example, PhonePe is an example. Still currently in loss, but they initially got venture funding, currently doing good. Similarly, Infosys, I believe, had some kind of VC backing in the starting or outside angel investors. Facebook, popular examples. Apple, another popular example. So this, yes, VC do look for profit, but then different stages of VCs have different priorities. The first stage would be just to see growth. The second stage would be to see stability. The third stage would be to see profits. So depending which VC are you a seed stage, Series A, or a Series B? You will focus on different matrices. There is no single answer for all of it.
Okay, sir. Sir, Preetpal has a question that still the VCs invest in cash burning startups. What is this scenario totally? Can you explain more about it?
For sure. So think of it, you have money, you have 1 crore in your house, and you invest in bank, and some of it you will get 2%, 3%, 4% return. In countries like Japan, if you invest 1 crore, you will get 99 lakh back after 10 years. So you are losing money. So people give it to funds which can invest in startups. Now the question is, how much cash burning can you do? So if you are in Japan, you are getting a negative yield. For every 1 crore, you will only get 99 lakh after 10 years. So you say, okay, fine, let me invest in a startup which is burning some money but can be profitable in the future. So one aspect is easy access to capital, because of which there is a lot of cash burning company. The second is, sometimes you need that cash burning. So VCs understand that you, to start a business, you need to burn cash. To give you an example, let's say you want to, I don't know, start a tech company which is building a social media. So initially you will need a website. Without a website, you cannot build a social media. To build a website, you need a domain. Then you need engineers. Then you need sales staff. Then you need marketing. So initially, there would not be enough amount of it to come. But then once you start growing, this cash burn will reduce. The unit economics will improve. Lenskart, I believe, is a good example where they were burning a lot of money, but recently they turned unit positive. So now, once you have turned unit positive, you grow exponentially, as I was mentioning before. And that is something that VCs look into. It's a wrong narrative that we invest purposely on cash burning startups, but cash burning तो होगा ही starting में. आप अपनी किराने की दुकान भी खोलोगे तो आपको कैश तो लगाना ही पड़ेगा ना उस दुकान को चालू करने के लिए. किराया तो देना पड़ेगा. Think of it this way.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one more question. What is the main difference between VCs, angel investors? Can you please clarify on that?
So there are multiple stages. So I would add another one, which is private equity investors here. So think of it, when a startup is born, they need guidance. They need someone who would help them in every way possible. So that is where angels come in. As the name suggests, they are angel for them. They help them in by giving some money, not big amount of money, but some money. Uh, then they help them with their connections. They tell them, okay, you have problem with XYZ licenses. Let me talk to a friend who is working in the banking industry. So they actively work with them. Now once they have grown the baby from 1 year of age to, let's say, 5 or 10 years of age, then they give it to the school, or which is the venture capital fund. Then what the VC fund does it, they say, okay, the child knows a little, let me teach you ABCD, let me help you to scale up from here. You will need more money, you will need better education, you will need more resources, so let me give you. So what angel does it gives you seed, then a VC gives you additional money, and now the angel is out of the picture, or sometimes they have limited stake. Now once you have grown up, you are 18, you are 20, you need to go to college now. So you go to private equity funds, which can give you billions of dollars to move from one particular geography, let's say India, to the US, to multiple locations. So angels can be usually their startup founders themselves who have previously experienced same thing. Then you have VC funds, and then private equity, which have big money, and then they invest in startups. Another difference between angel and VC fund usually is angel is investing his own money, whereas VCs take money from a lot of other people, rich people again, and then invest in startups. So it's not their money; they're just a manager of these monies.
Okay, sir. Sir, how can someone find a job in the venture capital fund?
Hmm. So VC has a lot of different aspects. So if I have to break it down, first is you need to find a startup. Then you need to give them capital. So second is giving them money. Third is you want to also make sure if you're giving someone some money, he's using it properly. He's not parting with it. Okay. And then the final one is helping them grow. So you can be a VC, you can enter as an analyst with any of these fields. You can be very good at finding good startups. है ना? So you know this startup can grow 100x. I know this friend, and he will take money from only the people I tell him to. So you can tell a VC that okay, this is your superpower, that you can get the best companies, क्योंकि VCs को भी तो ultimately पैसे डालने हैं जब मिले हैं तो. So you tell them कि okay, I can find the best startups. The second is um, raising money. So VC to invest money, they also need to raise money. So you can tell VC, okay, I have these connections who will give you money, and then we can manage it together. This come probably at a later stage. Then the third major part is managing the company. So let's say a VC has invested in 20 companies. Now every year or every quarter, you need to see what are their balance sheets, how are they doing, are they worth paying attention to, and then you work on that particular part or that particular game. So you can be either a good finder of startups, good finder of capital, or you can be a great manager who can manage all these portfolio companies.
Okay, sir. So, what does your typical day look like as in a VC firm?
So, a typical day, everyone can have differences. My typical day starts at 8 or 9 in the morning. And then the first job is to look at emails and see who has reached out to you. In a day, you usually get around 20 to 30 emails from different startups, different founders sharing their ideas. Now, as I said, ideas are sold in kgs. So you need to figure out which one of them are actually working on the idea and not just want to raise money. Because a lot of people see money or raising money as something which is very fancy. But on a contrary, it's an obligation. आपने किसी से पैसे लिए हैं, आपको उसे वापस करने हैं. Think of it this way. So then the whole perspective changes. So this said, so first hour would be answering all the emails. Then you have around 5 to 6 calls with various startups, understanding what they're trying to do, trying to talk to them, and then you take next 2 to 3 hours for yourself, where you understand what all have you learned in the last 6 hours. So every startup is like a master class because the person who is presenting is very passionate about the product. He knows it inside out. He knows I'm assuming he knows everything about the industry or most of it. So you're always learning something which is new. And then the second thing I after this is also networking with other VCs. An important part of venture capital is to getting deals. So if I'm getting 20 emails a day, I find it hard to sort them out, then schedule a call with them. But if there is a friend who is working with another fund, he has already seen a deal. So it helps me, it helps my fund. So an important part is also to network with other people, and the circle is very small. So you need to be very careful with that as well. You need to network, you need to add value to them as well at the same time. So that is how my typical day would look like. First 1 to 2 hours dedicated to emails, then next 6 hours dedicated to founders, and then last 2 to 3 hours dedicated to founders, to other investment analysts, VC funds, for your own research.
Okay, sir. Totally with you on that because I believe that network is your net worth and experience builds experience. Sir, the next question by Devesh Sharma is bootstrapping or venture capital, which is the best way to fund my startup?
Okay, so then again depends on the startup. There is no single answer for this. If you feel by having venture capital you can grow very rapidly, then maybe you can go for an investment. But you also need to, it's finance 101, that cost of equity is much more than cost of debt. So अगर आप you are assuming कि in next 5 years you will grow 100x, तो why do you want to sell your business today? जब आपको कल ज़्यादा वैल्यू मिल जाएगी तो आप आज क्यों बेचोगे? So that is another dilemma that founders have. So you need to make sure that can you grow without capital? If yes, grow as long as you can. And then if you hit a roadblock, there is a bottleneck, you cannot hire more people or revenues are slower than expected, then go for funding. Don't go for funding because you want to start a startup.
Okay, sir. Another question is, sir, how do I determine my startup costs and other expenses?
So you need to think of it in very simple language. Think of it, if you are running a startup, what will you need? You will need a sales team, you will need a marketing team, you will need a tech team. तो estimate, तो there is no silver bullet. आपको नहीं पता कि कौन कितनी सैलरी लेगा, बट आप एक मार्केट का आइडिया लगा लेते हो. So you estimate you will need 5 people for sales. You calculate their salary for 1 year. Then 5 people for marketing. You calculate their salary. Then 5 people for tech, 5 people for HR. And that is how you see. So think of it everything: office expenses, licenses, starting a company, hiring people, hiring stationery or having stationery. And that is where, going back to the previous point, experienced team or good founders come into picture. Since they have experience, they know they will need at least 5 people for this job, or at least 10 people, or sometime even one person can do it. So what is their competitive advantage? They know that okay, they will need a office space for 100 people. So they estimate all these costs in advance, and since they have prior business experience, they are a little up compared to a lot of other businesses or startups.
Okay, sir. Sir, coming back to blockchain, Grad has a question. Is there any security breaches in the blockchain?
So yes, security breaches are possible. Uh, there are multiple things in blockchain again. It's again a tech product, so hacking is possible. Taking money out of it is possible. How blockchain differentiates is if there is a major hacking, the person needs to divide the chain into two parts, which is called forking. Going a little deep, and it can be easily caught. If you would read a new recent news, I think it was around 6 months ago. Someone stole $3 billion in 2015, I guess, in bitcoins, and they were caught now. Why they were caught? Because everything is transparent on blockchain and people can track it. This said, there are a lot of layer one blockchains or like Ethereum. There are other chains which are coming, which can be hacked. So you need to do your due diligence beforehand. Uh, as I always say, always and never are always not possible and never impossible. So something like there is nothing like it is for sure safe or it is for sure unsafe. It's always a mix of both. And just to add another example here, uh, sharing a small story. So Ethereum, which is the second most popular blockchain, second most popular coin, best blockchain to build an app on. When it started in the very first days, in the beginning days, there was a hack. So if you see price, there are two price. One is Ethereum and one is Ethereum Classic. So definitely hacking is possible if the world's most popular chain can be hacked. Anything can be hacked. Recently, Binance was hacked. Recently, another trader who takes security very seriously was hacked. So it a lot depends on you as well, how you are able to manage it. Uh, every day, if something is going good, so as I say, कि जैसे जैसे गांव बसेगा वैसे वैसे लुटेरे आएंगे. If you are having money, then people will come try to find a breach. So you need to find ways to be safe from there.
Yes, sir. Another question, sir. How near are we to this Web3 space? As in, how long is this that it can be a possibility in the future?
Um, so if you're talking about mainstream adoption, maybe another 5 to 10 years is what I see. There are a couple of reasons. One, because everything on blockchain is visible to everyone. So think of it, you have a blockchain, you gave Preetpal 10 rupees. Now, because it's on blockchain, I can see how much you are giving Preetpal, although it's none of my business. I can also see how much money you have in your account. I can see how much money Preetpal has. I can also see Preetpal is giving money to whom. I can also see where you get your money from. So these are some of the problems which are currently in the system. Think of it, you are going to a doctor. Everyone knows you are going to a doctor. Then everyone knows what the doctor is telling you. Then everyone knows what you are coming back and telling to your parents. So so these are the kind of problems that still need to be solved. Technological adoption is important. And even if you look at computers started in 1950s, 1960s, but at least I remember until 2010 I did not have a computer, so 50 years. Uh, so so yeah, definitely there will be some time that would be taken. But I think in the next 5 to 10 years, which is really quick, we would see blockchain very mainstream in everything possible.
Sir, recently Meta crashed very badly, and I think that what do you perceive in your own matlab, way that the big players will take over the market of Web3, or will it be new players entering it?
So Meta is again an interesting play. Uh, it was earlier Facebook, as all of you know. Then they changed to Meta because they wanted to show metaverse in it, and then from there on, it is focusing on Web3 and creating a metaverse. I don't think existing players will take the space. There will be some adoption by them. Some of them will do good, but they will not be able to catch up to the new players. Again, going back to the example of Africa. तो अफ्रीका में बैंक नहीं थे, इसीलिए आप एसएमएस पे पैसे भेजने लग गए. बट अगर यूएस में बैंक है और आप एसएमएस पे पैसे भेजना चाहो, तो पीपल विल से यार एग्जिस्टिंग टेक्नोलॉजी इज देयर, व्हाई शुड वी take a new one. Another example I think is Sony, or I think Kodak. Kodak came up with digital cameras long before it was adopted, but they did not use it. They said कि हम reel कैसे बेचेंगे? If we sell digital camera, then no one will buy our reel. So they never used the digital camera. So new companies are also somewhat trying to bring disruption. Old companies will try to move slowly, and that is how I think they will differentiate themselves. And we will definitely see some of the big players losing their market share and new players emerging. That is the law of nature, and that is how things work.
Quite interesting to hear that, sir. Uh, Krish Agrawal has a question. What are the difficulties people faced for Web3?
Mhm. So again, within Web3, there are, as I mentioned, multiple things. So depends what you want to do. First is understanding the technology itself. It's a little complicated, I would admit. Creating your own wallet, which is decentralized. Then the second is regulation. If you want to buy a Bitcoin in India, you need to go to WazirX, which sometime in between, because of the regulations, stopped taking deposits. So how do you do that? Figuring out regulation. The third is mass adoption. Beyond currency, the adoption needs to be there. So people need to, you need a Facebook movement. Everything, internet existed before Facebook. There were emails. If you remember, there was BlackBerry phone, very protective just for emails. But then Facebook came and everyone started using it. So similarly, you need a Facebook movement for blockchain where everyone comes into the picture, start using it for fun, so that there is a wider adoption of the technology.
Okay, sir. Jatin has a question. Why Bitcoin divided into two parts?
Not Bitcoin, it was Ethereum that divided itself into two parts. Ethereum and Ethereum Fork. So Ethereum Classic and what is Ethereum? Uh, to go deep, Ethereum gave, or there was something called MakerDAO, which was a decentralized organization. It was hacked, and then everyone came to a consensus that this was wrong, and that is how it was differentiated. And yeah.
So Aryan, I actually have a very serious doubt at this. As you know, in India, recently government announced the taxes on the crypto gains, and as per me and as per you as well, in Web3, crypto plays a very major role. And even after having taxes on crypto gains in India and US as well, US have various types of laws. In India, have 30% flat taxes on crypto and 1% TDS. So I think it's kind of dual नेचर एक काइंड ऑफ गवर्नमेंट का है कि यार हम उन पे टैक्सेस भी करेंगे बट स्टिल वी आर नॉट गिविंग हिम a major. Agar suppose I am in India, want to start a crypto firm which trades and handles cryptocurrencies for people who are not able to do that, and but still I'm not able to register that as a company or a startup. I have to go through some loopholes for that. So what's your take on that?
Hmm. Uh, so I think government concerns are valid and your concerns are also valid. There is no black and white in this picture. What is the major concern of the government and especially RBI is that people raise money in cryptos. Okay, so people invest in crypto. First is a lot of them are just fraud. So people raising money for things which are fraud. So I would definitely appreciate RBI and SEBI. They are one of the best regulators in the world. They've regulated the space really well, reduced leverage, and they're trying to do something similar. They're protecting the investor there. The second worry is a lot of people are using this to move money out of India, which is a major problem. So if, let's say, the Russia-Ukraine war, in such a crisis, everyone wants to buy a dollar, and if in India everyone starts buying dollar, then the rupee value will go down, and it will be a problem for common people, or 30 to 40% of Indian population, which is just living on the substantial line of poverty. They will go bankrupt. They will not have food. They will not be able to afford anything. So RBI is working for them, and I think it's a good step. This said, there are a lot of companies which are working on blockchain startups for social users, uh, and which are registered in India. And then the final thing is, if you look at startups, most of it, they were anyway not registered in India. Flipkart is based out of Singapore. PhonePe was based out of Singapore. Amazon is based out of Singapore. So that is a wider problem of law enforcement and contract enforcement, which the government, I believe, is working on it. And in the coming years, we would see a lot of improvement in that. Previously, people have improved, or countries have improved. US was never US to start with. It grew up there gradually. If you look at 300 years ago, UK was not UK before they invaded India. They were small island no one cared about, to be honest. So there will be changes. It will come slowly.
Thank you, sir. Sir, according to you, what are the major benefits of working as a blockchain engineer or developer?
So I'm not an engineer, but I do know that engineers are something which is always in a shortage. If you want to start a startup or if you are building a big company, you will need engineers, and engineer supply is very limited. So in blockchain, since the space is new, projects are a lot. So they need blockchain engineer, and I see there is a lot of possibility for that in the future. And even now, I see people doing multiple jobs at the same time, and companies are completely. So you see Infosys, which is telling Infosys TCS, which is telling people you cannot do moonlighting or two jobs at the same time. And on the contrary, you have blockchain companies which have so much shortage of engineers that they're telling कि आप 5 job भी कर दो पर मेरा काम कर देना यार. Take some extra money, because they don't know how to code. So it's a skill which I feel everyone should know and should master in.
Okay, thank you, sir. One last question about you. Do you have any side hustles or something that you are passionate about?
So there are a couple of things that I'm doing. One, as I mentioned, is teaching people about blockchain and Web3. I think a group link was shared by others and then by me as well about how people can join it. So I constantly share material which can help you learn about Web3 and blockchain. So that is one hustle that I have. Then the second is I have had the opportunity to study across different countries, India, Canada, France. So I'm also helping students to get admissions abroad or just in career counseling. So one-on-one conversation with students who are ambitious and might need career help. So these are the two major initiatives that I'm running. Plus, of course, I help startups, in advising them and telling them what potentially they can do.
Okay. Thank you, sir. For the audience, please open your camera so we can have a snap for the eCell Instagram page. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for enlightening us. Surely was a great experience talking with you. Thanks a lot.
I'm glad you liked it, and thanks a lot for inviting me. I hope to hear from you and everyone else as well in the coming future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.